Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Tech Motoring. On today's episode we're going to be talking about my 2-year ownership of my Tesla Model 3 Performance back here. So we've had our 2022 Tesla Model 3 Performance now for 2 years. It just locked itself, and we are going to be talking about my 2-year ownership, or at least the last year of ownership, since I've already done a 1-year ownership video of this car and kind of discussed some of my pros and cons of the vehicle. Let's go over some of the car, let's go over some of the issues I've had with the car, some of the issues I still have with the car, and we'll kind of just talk about some of the pros and cons of owning a Tesla vehicle and what it's going to be like possibly into the near future. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below the video, hit the thumbs up there as well while you're at it, and let's dive into the video, take a look at the Tesla Model 3 Performance, and see if this is a car that's going to be staying in my garage much longer, or is it going to be on the sales block. Let's find out. Hit that subscribe button. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back to the video and welcome back to another episode of Tech Motoring. So my name is Paul, for those of you who may be new to the channel or maybe just forgot my name, but this is our 2022 Tesla Model 3 Performance. So once again, we've picked this car up in December of 2022. So very end of 2022. This was actually the demo car on the lot in Charlotte, North Carolina. Came across it in, I think, end of November of 22, saw this car in a lot, picked it up at a pretty good price because they were doing like end of the year deals, and then this was a demo car, so they had discounted it quite heavily. So I thought I had gotten a pretty good price on this car, and then January of 23 happened, and we all know what happened there. All these cars got heavily discounted, MSRP price extremely lowered from what they were just a month prior when I bought this. And so this car is pretty much a lot less than what I paid for it nowadays. I think you could pick up a Model 3 Performance for like at less than 50 grand or something ridiculous, especially after tax credit. So a fantastic car, fantastic value for what it is, especially now with the new refresh 2024 models of the Tesla Model 3. So you got the new, what they call the Highland, which has the, the new front end, the new tail lights. They tweaked a lot of things on the interior. So there's a lot of things that they changed in the new Model 3s. But of course, if you're looking for a used Model 3, which means you're going to end up probably with a 2022, 2021, 2020, whatever the case may be, it's got to be at least 2 years old for the used federal tax credit to, work out for you. So now the 2022s are now eligible for that $4,000 up to $4,000 tax credit. So if you're looking at a used Tesla, here's a 2022 for you. Not much different from the 21s, the 20s. They did a little bit of an interior refresh from like the 18s and the 19s and stuff. So there's a couple things different from the earlier models. Obviously, we have the blacked out handles and the blacked out trim, as opposed to the older generation that has like the chrome trim, the chrome handles on it. They had a little bit different look to them. But anyway, my 2022 Tesla Model 3 Performance has been a fantastic car for 2 years. I've absolutely loved it, and I really don't have any regrets buying it, other than the fact that I may have paid a little bit too much for it. But other than that, I still love the car. I think it's fantastic. And let's go over some of the things with it. So once again, I did a 1-year review of this car literally 1 year ago, so you can actually go back. I'll take a moment to list that up here. I'll put it down in the description of the video as well, in case you want to take a look at that for our 1 year. So some of the stuff I'll go over again, but a lot of the stuff I won't. It'll just be the, you could go back to that video if you want to see some of the first year experience with the car. But overall, the car's been in great shape. Haven't had any major issues with it. We'll go over some of the issues we have had with the car. And like I said, most of this stuff we have talked about in the first year review, or the first year experience or ownership of this car. For instance, I had a massive wind noise here in the actually the day I bought it and I started driving it home, started hearing a bad wind noise there. Ended up getting that fixed when we drove it out to Colorado. We'll talk about that trip in a little bit. So I ended up getting that fixed at a service center out there. We actually don't have any service centers here. Well, that's not true. So the state of South Carolina, we have no Tesla pickup centers. So we can't purchase and pick up a Tesla in the state of South Carolina. I have to go to North Carolina, which is the closest one, which would be Charlotte, which is 3.5 hours away, give or take. That's where I picked up this car. And up until less than a year ago, we didn't have any service centers here as well. So we just recently got a service center in the state of South Carolina, in Columbia, South Carolina, which is the state capital, but that is actually about 3 hours from me as well. So not much closer than Charlotte, but worst case scenario, if I had to drive 3 hours, I could go out to Columbia, or I could go to Charlotte, which is about 3.5 hours. There's also Raleigh, and then I could go down into Georgia if I really, really wanted to, but 3 hours is about the minimum that I would have to drive to go to a service center. So I try to get mobile service out to see this car as much as possible, because they, do a fantastic job when they're here, and honestly, it's a lot easier for me to do that than to drive 3 hours to get the car worked on. So mobile service has come out a couple times over the 2 years I've owned this car. So one was the trim I was talking about before, which they couldn't fix remotely or mobily. They had to basically refer me to a service center, which I did out in Colorado. Once again, we had this taillight that was bad. So that taillight had gotten some water in it. You could see it just building up over time. And it actually triggered some warnings on my car as well. I actually was getting some turn signal fault warnings on the screen of the car, so it was definitely causing some issues, from maybe shorting out something in the lens. It seemed like it was worse after it had rained. You would see more of a buildup of water. So yeah, we had to get the light replaced. Of course, in the process of them doing it, they ended up taking some paint off, which I had to get them to give me some touch-up paint for that, so I can touch up the paint that they scraped right off the end of my car here. No big deal, little things like that we had to get done. I've had the tires rotated a couple times. I've had an issue with the back seat recently this past year, where I had to get this back seat. They had to fix a bushing to make this thing stop rattling, but honestly, it's still a little rattly. It's still pretty bad when driving, honestly, so that's not really fixed. It's just another a typical Tesla rattle, basically. It's just what you kind of expect anymore from driving a Tesla vehicle. So you're going to have some sort of rattles. But really, other than that noise in the seat, I don't really have any other noises with this car, any other rattles with the car. The car is actually built pretty well, other than the couple things that I've discovered in my time of owning it. So it's really hasn't been too bad. Thankfully, all the glass has been perfect. We haven't had any broken glass or cracked glass. I did have the glass tinted on the sides, so this way, and the roof actually. So this way, we ceramic coated, tinted all that, or ceramic tinted, not ceramic coated tinted. It's just ceramic tinted the glass. So this way, it's all as much heat rejection as possible. The windshield has gotten hit quite a few times. So like, this is our most recent one coming back from Tennessee. We had gotten this big chip right here. Not that it's a huge chip, it's not going to spider web or anything, but actually we got hit, and I didn't realize this till after we got home. This was actually the hit from whatever hit the windshield. It actually hit the hood first, bounced off the hood, so it actually took some paint off the hood, then hit the windshield and just kind of did this ricochet off and over. Now, had we got hit directly in the windshield with whatever that was, that would have definitely cracked the windshield. But unfortunately, I took a little bit of a hit in the hood right there on our way back from that Tennessee trip. Another thing we had done this past year, this piece right here, our carbon fiber spoiler, had been pretty much like discoloring or delaminating. I'm not sure what you would refer to it as, but it was definitely just turning white and starting to make its way through the spoiler. That might have been partially my fault. That might have been partially the fact that this was a demo car that sat on the lot outside in the sun for, 6 months or so. Who knows exactly where the fault lies on that, but I hear that's a very common issue with this car, and these things go pretty bad all the time. And so I actually got that replaced under warranty from Tesla, which was very nice. And now it actually sticks pretty well to the car. It doesn't really move all that much. The other one was practically falling off the car under my ownership there for about a year or so before I really put the ticket in to get it done. Overall, the car's pretty good. We don't really have, I know a lot of people were stuck on like door panel gaps and everything. This car has actually been pretty straight. I actually haven't had any issues with it myself. The one issue we did have with it is this one bumper over here in the corner. This was sticking out at one point. It was just actually sticking out from the car a little bit. I actually got the mobile tech to look at that, and she was just like, okay, hold on. 5 minutes later, she had that thing completely taken care of and had that pushed back in, and now it's all lined up, so the bumper lines up with the fender much better. Little things like that I had to get done on the car, but overall, the car's been fantastic. I haven't had really any issues with it. We're still on the stock Pirelli P0 tires here. So we have about 22,000 and almost 500 miles on the car, which is not a lot for 2 years. We did a lot of mileage on this car in the first year, especially with our trip out to Colorado. And so that put a lot of miles on it right away. But then over the course of the next year or so, we've had, other vehicles. Obviously, we have our Mustang Mach-E, as you can see, and then, of course, we have our little Fiat way out there in the edge of the driveway. So the Fiat has technically become our weekend car. We actually just drive that all the time on the weekends because that's a great run around town car. And this becomes my everyday driver for work and for other things that we need it for. And, we do travel quite a bit, so this became one of our cars that we road trip. It's either this car or the Mach-E, obviously, and so we kind of exchange back and forth between those two cars for road trips, but obviously the experience is completely different having access to the supercharger network, the Tesla supercharger network, and the Mach-E, which didn't have access up until recently, which now we can go and supercharge the Mach-E. Not that it charges very quickly, but it's still convenient to have another place to charge that vehicle. And so now these two cars are kind of falling in line a little bit with their, their respective charging abilities. So we can charge at pretty much the same places for both cars, since we do have the CCS to Tesla charging adapter for the Tesla Model 3. Sorry for the sirens in the background. They'll probably last another 10 or 15 seconds before they go away. I do some hauling for my job. I usually bring equipment from sites and stuff back and forth. So I made sure that I put full mats in all the cars to make sure that we protect it as much as possible. But everything's been holding up pretty well. Got the sub trunk there, and absolutely love the trunk. I think the trunk is perfectly fine. It's sized very well, especially when you have that sub trunk there, which is also really nice. You keep a lot of equipment down there. This way it doesn't take up this space. Of course, you have the frunk as well. The frunk is well sized in this vehicle, so you don't have to worry too much about, keeping like your miscellaneous stuff. Like I keep my EVSE, I keep some roadside equipment, some jack pucks all up in the frunk here. Let's go ahead, I'm gonna pop that real quick. All right, so we got the front trunk popped, or the frunk. And so yeah, once again, plenty of space up in the front trunk of this vehicle, so you could keep a lot of miscellaneous items. I got my roadside equipment here, level 1 EVSE, the jack pucks, a little compressor there, got some glass wipes just in case we need to clean the windshield while we're on a road trip. Little things like that we keep up here, so this way it's not taking up any space in the practical side of the storage of the vehicle. I do like the front end of the Model 3. I think it looks really, really good. I think the Highland, or the new Model 3 refresh, actually has a better look to the front of it. I think that this one looks perfectly fine, but I think the new one just looks so much nicer looking. So they did a really good job on the refresh of the Model 3. We could see my tires are looking, well, obviously they're really dirty right now, but looking pretty good. Our treads are still pretty good there, so I think I could probably get at least 30,000 miles on these tires before I need to worry about them. I don't really do anything crazy with the car. I don't track the car. I don't do really high performance stuff with the car all the time. It's really just kind of the everyday driver, and of course some weekend fun depending on where we are and what we're doing. Let's jump into the interior real quick, kind of discuss some of the things about that. So let's talk about the back seat. The back seat in this vehicle is perfectly adequate. We've had 4 adults in this car for plenty of trips just around town and stuff, and it's pretty comfortable whatsoever. Got our floor mats, of course, in the back here to help with that. And, you know, in the back seat, you don't really have too much back here. I mean, once again, the refresh Model 3 gives you a lot more things with the screen here. You have your climate controls for the back seats back here. You know, and there's a lot of things that can be definitely improved with the Model 3, and which they did in the new refresh, which is pretty cool. But you do have your USB-C ports here for anybody in the back seat that wants to charge their phone or tablet or what have you. So as you can see, I got pretty decent leg room back here. I'm short, I'm 5'7", so my front seat, my driver's seat, is pretty much where I would be sitting, and I have a good, you know, I would call that close to 6 inches of space between my knee and the seat in front of me. So once again, pretty fine for 4 adults. You can see here with headroom here. I mean, I don't know, what is that? Close to 4 or 5 inches of space between my head and the glass roof of the vehicle. And the back seat is a really nice place to kind of sit, and I don't really have an issue with it. I've been in the back of Model Ys before, but not really sat in the back of my own Model 3. But honestly, I really love the interior in this car. The seats have held up very well. We haven't had too much in the back seat. I haven't had any issues with the interior of the Model 3. All the materials, all the seats, everything has held up very, very well. As you can see on the front seats, I actually have these white seat covers. I was actually in the middle of putting on a set of these white seat covers, and it turns out the company had sent me the wrong ones. They sent me the ones for the Model Y, so the back seats never got covered. It's just the front seats that got covered for now, which are the 2 seats that get used the most in this car. But that's why it looks kind of weird. I have the front front seats covered in these white seats, but the backs are still black. I'm probably going to end up taking these seat covers off anyway, and just making it all black. I don't think I'm going to be putting the white seat covers on as it is, but that's pretty much why, if you're questioning why we have white seat covers in, that's why. I was in the middle of putting them on, and then I realized after putting the front seats on, the back seats are completely incorrect, and that's why I never got to finishing the seat covers in this car. Obviously, we have floor mats in the front as well. Got the performance pedals being part of the performance package here. Sitting in the front seat is really kind of comfortable. As you can see here, we have, you know, our nice dashboard here, pretty decent materials. We still got this wood grain here that's pretty nice. Some people either hate it or love it. It's really up to you. But really, it's minimal. I mean, once again, the whole Tesla thing is just minimal. You don't get knobs, you don't get switches, you don't get anything that really adjusts anything else in the car. The door panel is literally just open the door, your windows switches here, and obviously you have your emergency door release as well. But pretty much that's all you get as far as buttons. Obviously you have your steering wheel buttons, of course, which we all know what these do. You have your volume and your autopilot controls. Of course, in the earlier models prior to the Highland or the refresh, you do have your stalks. So you do have your turn signal stalks, of course, and you do have your gear selector stalk right there, which is nice. I've driven a couple of Teslas with the screen thing. It's fine. I don't really have an issue with it. The turn signals are okay. I mean, obviously it all depends on what you like, what you would like to see, what you would prefer to have in your car is going to depend on whether or not you can deal with having buttons for turn signals, or if you would rather have the stalks as opposed to, you know, on-screen controls for drive and park and neutral and what have you. And so really it comes down to whatever you choose. Because if you're looking at a used car, then you're going to get most likely one with the stalk. But if you wait a couple more years, obviously the ones are going to be on the market that are going to have stalk less. And so you're going to have to get used to buttons on the steering wheel and the screen for selecting certain things. And it's going to be a little bit interesting to see how people adapt to that change, you know, over time, and see how people get used to this. So there are a lot of people out there who buy Teslas that are not necessarily like EV enthusiasts, right? So a lot of people are just buying Tesla because it's either like a status thing. They have their Model S or Model X or fully loaded Cybertruck, or maybe they just want it because it was the only electric vehicle that really, you know, made sense 3 or 4 years ago. Now with how prevalent electric vehicles are, much better electric vehicles, I should say, you know, that's becoming less and less the case. So we're getting a lot more just everyday normal people buying electric vehicles, especially Teslas. And because of that, you know, some people are going to be like, oh no, I can't buy a car without stalks. I'll have to look at something other than a Tesla. Whereas other people are like, no, 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 I'm okay with moving forward. I'm perfectly fine with not having the stalks. Like, let's just get rid of them, make it you know, even more simple in interior, and, you know, just move on. And so you're going to have those two camps of people, which is going to, you know, potentially take people away from Tesla just because of a simple thing like that. Whereas, you know, other people are just going to be like, I don't care what Tesla does. I'm going to buy a Tesla regardless of what they do with it because they just like Tesla. But I mean, really, like, as you can see here, we have a lot of different electric vehicles. We have our Tesla, we have our Mustang Mach-E, I got the electric Fiat up there. We had a Hyundai Ioniq, a first generation, many years ago. Well, many years ago. We sold it a couple years ago. And so over time, you know, I've developed quite an interest in different vehicles. And so I don't really have this Tesla fanboy personality that a lot of people have, but I really like the Tesla Model 3 Performance. This particular car is actually really cool. I really enjoy driving it. The dynamics of driving it are fantastic. And we're going to go for a little bit of a drive in a little bit. But overall, I got to say that I love this car. It's fantastic. But it definitely is missing some of the creature comforts that you get in some other vehicles. And so we're going to kind of go over that in a little bit. So as we can see here, we just have our Tesla screen. So the screen obviously has all the controls for everything in the vehicle. This is the settings menu, as you can see. So you can change every single setting in this vehicle all through one screen, which is really cool. We just got our holiday 2024 update. So we have even more, you know, features and a little bit of extra things. So like, for instance, now you go to the seats menu, you can adjust your, you know, passenger seat right from the screen, like so. You could turn on your heated seats right from here, which is really cool, even for the back seats. So all this integration, all this software, this is what makes people want to buy a Tesla and want to, you know, basically live in their car, because there's so much integration. Obviously, you have the integration of, like, you know, pet mode and stuff, which is great for people who have pets and want to travel. Take 45 minutes to go get lunch or whatever, but you can't bring your dog with you or whatever. You could just throw it in pet mode. It gives you a nice big thing on the screen that says, hey, you know, it's this temperature inside. Like, things like that, Tesla is #1 at, and is really, you know, paving the way for other companies to follow suit and do a better job. And so for that, I have to give Tesla a lot of credit. They really have a lot of really cool features and a lot of really cool tech in their vehicles that people want to see. Even simple things like, I want to close the trunk right now. I just hit the button and thunk, and it's closed. And simple things like that. Like, I could do that really easily, right? It's right there. It's just really nice to just be able to have that functionality. Same thing with, like, simple things like opening the glove box. Like, I could go into controls and open the glove box, but I've tied it to this button on my steering wheel, so I hold the button in, pops the glove box down, so now I have access to my glove box, which, because of this is always locked unless somebody has a key to the car, which is also nice. So nobody can break into your car and get into your glove box unless they can start the vehicle, basically, before they can do that. Little things like that can go a long way with, you know, owning an electric vehicle and driving it and just having that confidence in the software. Their navigation obviously is also very good. Their navigation is fantastic. I always use the Tesla navigation when I'm in the Tesla. It gets you where you need to go. Sometimes I customize my routes depending on where we're going, but overall the navigation is just absolutely amazing in the Tesla. I never have to worry about it. Whereas the Mach-E, when we road trip that, we kind of like, we sort of use the built-in road trip, the trip planner and stuff like that. But a lot of times it can be weird. It could be off. It could send me to a station that doesn't really make sense. And so a lot of times I'm there trying to, like, customize where we're actually going and stopping in the vehicle. And so that kind of complicates owning an electric car, is because you're trying to do everything yourself as opposed to the car doing all the work, which is what people like. As you can see, I have my odometer, 22,455. So we're close to 22,500 miles on the car. And yeah, like I said, once again, there's not much to show in the interior because there's really not much here. You do have your two QI wireless phone chargers here. You do have a little bit of storage here in your center consoles. You can see I got some USB-C cables plugged into the USB-C ports down here in this part of the console, which is really nice. Some cup holders, some center storage area as well, which is really nice, so you can keep some stuff down there. I think I have one of these trays in here. It goes down even deeper in case I need it, extra space. But yeah, overall, that's pretty good. And that's pretty much the entire interior. Once again, it's one of those things where Tesla makes everything very simple, very easy, and for certain people, kind of like myself, I like that in cars. I like having simple and less buttons and just less clutter in a vehicle. It just makes everything easy when it's on a screen like that. And of course, everybody is different when it comes to that. Some people want to have the big buttons to push or the volume knob to turn or whatever the case may be. A lot of people prefer to have that kind of style interactions with their interiors or with their vehicles as opposed to the minimalist of having just basically a screen to control everything. But the way Tesla has developed it over the past 10 years or so, they've really, really gotten down really, really well. And so I thoroughly enjoy that part of it. Other than that, that's pretty much it for the interior. We're going to go over some driving impressions here in a minute. The interior is very comfortable. We've taken this on some really long drives. We've taken this pretty much everywhere from here in Myrtle Beach. We've gone all the way out to Colorado with this vehicle. We did that early last year. Drove it 1,800 miles out to Colorado and, of course, 1,800 miles back. And it was pretty much flawless the entire time. We had no issues with the vehicle. We had no issues with charging. I mean, we had a couple little snafus where we plugged in and we were getting slower charging. But other than that, Tesla superchargers were great. We didn't really have any major issues with that. So, I mean, just being able to experience that side of things, owning CCS vehicles prior to this, that really gave me that, oh, well, this is what everybody needs to do. This is how it needs to be for every vehicle, regardless of the plug that's on the side, is just, it needs to be that seamless, show up, plug it in, have plenty of stalls to plug in, and make sure that you're getting the best charging speeds possible, which is not always the case with, CCS vehicles, Electrify America, EVgo, whatever. Any of those companies you go, sometimes the chargers work, sometimes they don't, and that's not always a great experience. Tesla, you always feel like when you get there, things are just going to work and you don't even think about it. Even with the Mach-E specifically, I was kind of saying before that we can supercharge the Mach-E, right? Well, with being able to supercharge the Mach-E, I've noticed that when I'm on a road trip and we're going to stop at a supercharger, I don't ever worry about looking up to see if there's superchargers out of order or how busy it is or anything like that. I literally just put it in the navigation and we go there because I have the confidence that the Tesla superchargers will work, or at least there'll be enough of them that do work that I'm not worrying about whether or not, oh, there's only going to be like 1 or 2 chargers available and there'll be like a line of 6 cars. Like, no, there'll be 16 superchargers there. And if 2 of them are down, like, it's not a big deal. There's plenty of throughput there with having the rest of those superchargers. And so I've noticed that even with the Mach-E, my mentality of driving or road tripping has completely changed just due to the fact that I can go to a supercharger, I can charge the Mach-E there, and it is a pretty much perfect charging session every time I go. And so I don't really worry about that so much anymore, even in that vehicle. So the Tesla supercharger network is pretty much fantastic, and there is no equivalent to it. Even if you add up all the other CCS chargers, there's no equivalent to it. Anyway, I think we've pretty much covered everything in this side of the vehicle. A lot of people who are probably watching this probably know already a lot about, Tesla vehicles, and, so you're probably not really learning too much from this, but my experience with the car has been very, very positive. I have not really had any issues with the car. And so after 22,000 miles, I'm really not expecting there to be a lot of major issues with this car into the near future, the next year of owning this car. I mean, we drive it a lot, we road trip it a lot, we have a lot of fun with the car, and it's just been solid. All right, and last thing I'll talk about before we go for our driving impressions part of this review. So I didn't even talk about the color of the car. So this is the Midnight Silver Metallic. So actually when this car was manufactured, that was actually an optional color. It then later on became the free color. So this was like $1,000 option when this car was built. But I think it's still the free color, if I'm not mistaken. I think you could still get Midnight Silver Metallic for free. And it's a beautiful color, really, really nice. It's almost got this tinge of blue to it, which a lot of people kind of like, but it's a really beautiful color. Sorry, the car is actually like really messy right now. It's really dirty. I didn't get a chance to clean it up before the video, but really, really nice. The wheels are these black Uber turbine wheels. I love black wheels, really a big fan of them. These actually look really, really nice on the car, and don't really have any issues as far as that goes. I haven't curbed them yet, like a lot of Tesla owners. I know a lot of Tesla owners kind of have some bad luck with these wheels, especially these 20-inch wheels. You got very minimal sidewall here, very little protection to protect that wheel in case you ever get close to a curb. So I know I've seen a lot of these cars all really smashed up wheels, and it really kind of hurts every time I see that. But yeah, I've been doing a pretty good job of keeping these wheels in good shape. They're pretty much curb rash free at this point, and I'm pretty happy about that. And yeah, let's jump in the car. We'll kind of talk about autopilot. I'll even give you my impressions of FSD, which I've tried multiple times. I don't have it, I don't pay for it on this car, but of course I've had my experiences with it, not only on this car, but also on a Tesla Model Y. So we'll kind of go over some of that discussion in our next segment. So let's jump over to our driving impressions part, and then we'll polish up the video from there. All right, everybody. Well, you join me now during the driving portion of my 2-year review of my Tesla Model 3 performance. I really appreciate you watching the video up until this point. I know I do a lot of talking and trying to get all of the thoughts out of my head in this video takes a lot of time because I have a tendency of having a lot of thoughts. So I really appreciate you sticking it out, but welcome to the driving portion of the 2022 Tesla Model 3 performance, and we are on the road going for a quick drive, just kind of go over some of the driving dynamics of the Model 3 performance, and just to kind of go from there. Now, if you are with the channel for a very long time, from the very beginning, one of my first videos ever was driving a Tesla Model 3. It was a 2019 Tesla Model 3. It was actually my friend's car, which I blame him for him getting me into all this stuff, actually. And yeah, so I got to drive that car, and I was so thoroughly impressed with it. And that was just a Model 3, like a regular base Model 3. And now here we are, you know, quite a few years later, and we are driving stuff that is a lot more powerful, a lot more efficient, and just can go a lot further than kind of a lot of people ever expected. So for instance, his car back in 2019 only had like a range of like 215 miles, something like that, whereas this car is now 300. And it's the performance version. And with the performance version, you get that fun time of doing something like this, where you just come off an exit and just go, just absolute bonkers performance. And we're only at 34% state of charge right now. And I mean, being able to pull a 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, I think with this car it's 3.1 seconds, is just absolutely bonkers, especially now in a car that is under $50,000. Like, how could you even remotely come close to that in a, you know, a gas vehicle nowadays? It's so hard to find a vehicle that is so well-rounded for performance and comfortability and could do all that stuff for less than $50,000. It really is hard to come by. And I think that's what makes the Model 3 such a bargain and such a good priced vehicle. Well, a lot of people I know that when they're asking like, hey, you know, what kind of car should I get? You know, I want this and I want this. I want to be able to travel with it and I want to be able to charge. I usually tell them Model 3, Model Y, because a lot of times people are like, well, I got to travel a lot, but I don't want to deal with charging all the time. You know, I want to make sure it's easy. And it's like, well, superchargers are as easy as it gets. And so yeah, I can see why everybody thinks, you know, the Tesla brand is so much better when it comes to that type of thing. But that's starting to come closer and closer. Other companies are getting closer and closer to that experience, especially now with supercharger access for a lot of the major brands, you know, Ford, GM, Volvo. I know Nissan has it recently. Like just as they start being rolled out more and more and more, you know, Tesla's dominance is going to start slowing down a little bit. But when it comes to bang for the buck with the Tesla Model 3 or Model Y, really, it's really hard to find an equivalent car right now. So here we are on a major highway. We have it just in autopilot. This is just basic autopilot. Every Tesla has basic autopilot standard. You get it with the car, which is also very nice. And so it just does lane centering for you. It does dynamic cruise control, so it's all cruise control based off of all the cameras on the car. Now this car does have ultrasonic sensors for like parking and stuff, but I've been using the new software that uses just the cameras, and it's been perfectly fine. I haven't really had many issues with it, and it seems to work fine. I really haven't had many issues with it. So here we are, just driving along with autopilot, cruising, and you know, we're coming up to this turn here. It's very just confident about making this turn. Comparing it to my Mach-E, when I take this turn on their standard Blue Cruise, it gets really choppy on this turn, and it starts to sway, and it starts to make these mistakes as it's going through the turn, and it gets a little bit dangerous, a little scary. And so autopilot is just so more unique and confident to every little aspect of its abilities, and so I really love autopilot for what it is. And so this is all in the name of safety. You know, you have your lane centering, you have your dynamic cruise control, you have a lot of features in this car that are in the name of safety. And so it's really cool to see that, you know, Tesla has developed more and more safety mechanisms into their cars over the years, and have been expanding a lot of that stuff, even just through basic software. Like for instance, now in this new holiday update, I believe now you get a cross traffic alert. So one of the big complaints that a lot of people have with these cars is, you know, why don't I have cross traffic alert? Like, why isn't that like a basic feature in these cars? And so Tesla just added in that feature through software. They didn't need any more hardware to do it, because all you needed is the cameras to see what was behind them and identify if there was something coming that would potentially impact you if you were to continue to back out. And so they built that in through software, and now a lot of the Teslas have cross traffic alert. Just like that, like just software. Like that's the stuff that people are like, yes, that's why I drive a Tesla. It's not because they don't do it, it's because they will eventually do it. But then you can have those arguments of how long it takes for them to get certain features out. So driving along really nicely, the Model 3, and this is the performance, keep in mind, the Model 3 performance is just very smooth, very nice. Of course, with these big 20-inch wheels, you do get a little bit more jostling when it comes to you know, bumps, or if you hit potholes. You got to be really, really careful with potholes with this car, because if you hit a big enough pothole, there's a very good chance you can, you know, blow out the tire and or damage your rims, because of the fact that your sidewall is very thin on this car, and it doesn't have that much give to it. And so you do have to be careful with driving on certain roads that might be a little bit rough and that could potentially have some potholes in it. You want to avoid those as much as you possibly can. If you're looking at getting like a Model 3 that is not the performance, it has the 18-inch wheels on it, you're probably going to be a lot better off with that when it comes to you know, potholes and such. You'll have a little bit more forgiveness. Of course, the ride will be a little bit more cushy as well, because you'll have a little bit more sidewall to give on some bumps and stuff. Obviously, with the performance, you get the performance suspension as well, which is really cool. The other cool thing about Tesla Model 3 performances, also Model Y performance, is they do have a track mode. So you can actually go in there and adjust your track mode. So you can go in there and adjust your front and rear motor. So once again, two motors in this vehicle, one on the back axle, one on the front axle. And you could go into your settings and you can actually adjust your performance on those motors, and just a couple other things too as well. It's really, really cool. You can hear now that we hit some older pavement, there is some road noise in here. So this particular year does have the double pane glass on the driver's side and the passenger side fronts. The rears are still the single pane glass. And so there is a little bit of road noise, partially due to the performance tires, which do have the foam inside, which does help obviously, but you do get some road noise in the cabin still. I heard the new Model 3 Highlands are actually extremely better with in-cabin sound. It's a lot more quieter and just a lot nicer on the inside, which is really cool to see. So they've evolved the Model 3 even more over that refresh cycle. But overall, it's solid in the middle of the lane. I haven't had any issues with having to steer the car myself. Basically, the autopilot has been taking care of it. I've just been giving it nudges on the wheel. Like right now, it says apply slight turning force. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of nudge to the wheel. It says, okay, good, we know you're being attentive. It has the built-in camera in the cockpit here, so this way it can watch you. And so this way it's using that, primarily uses that during like full self-driving. So if you're using full self-driving, it wants you to keep your eyes on the road while the car is driving itself. I put that in air quotes. Autopilot is fantastic. Enhanced autopilot was even better, but unfortunately enhanced autopilot is not a thing anymore. You can't buy enhanced autopilot because they've lowered the price of full self-driving down to I believe it's $8,000 at the time of this recording. So full self-driving now being $8,000, or you can get it for $100 per month. That is a pretty cool feature that you can get in most of the modern Teslas, is that you can just subscribe to full self-driving even if you didn't buy it with the car. And so that's a pretty cool feature, and I've used full self-driving a few times, and full self-driving is good, and it's getting better. And I know there's a lot of harsh beliefs in it, and I know a lot of people are really struggling to believe that it's going to do what they say it's going to do. But honestly, I mean, it just keeps getting better and better and better. And I can't really comment on, like, will it ever be safe? Like, will humans ever be safe drivers? Like, to some degree, yeah, but there's always going to be accidents because we're all human, right? That's human nature. And so is full self-driving safer than a human? I'd like to think so. I like to think that it can be, if it isn't already. And so I think full self-driving makes a lot of sense. Maybe not so much in everyday cars, but maybe it makes more sense with this whole like robo-taxi thing, where you can, hail a taxi and it comes and picks you up and then it just takes you where you need to go, drops you off at the curb. I mean, I'm not a big fan of cars without steering wheels for like your everyday driver, because it makes it difficult getting through parking lots. Like full self-driving is not very good in parking lots right now. It really struggles with certain things. And, me personally, when I go into a parking lot, I'm always looking for a particular spot to be in. Like, I'm not usually like just find the closest spot to the door, whatever. I usually look for a very particular spot to make sure that, I park away from people. I try to keep this car in as great of a shape as possible. And so I'm not a big fan on steering wheel-less cars. I definitely feel like any car I'm going to buy for a very long time is going to probably still have a steering wheel in it. And full self-driving is pretty impressive, and I'm interested in it. Now, I personally am not willing to spend the $8,000 on FSD right now, and I think we'll just wait and see how that goes. I mean, $100 a month is a lot more affordable for people than $8,000 just plopped down for, a still technically in process driving system. And so that's going to be really interesting when, or if, I don't know. I think when they get that kind of finalized and legalized and people can start taking Tesla full self-driving robo-taxis around. So I think that'll be really cool. I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that tech. And once again, this is not me. I'm not trying to be a fanboy about Tesla and say, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, I'll believe it when I see it kind of thing. And I'm not really counting all my eggs before they hatch. Let's just put it that way. But I think the technology is amazing, and I think it's fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to see what they can do with it. But here we are now. We're just kind of made a loop. We're going to head back to the other way. As you can see, my routine is get on the highway, throw it into autopilot. Now I'm going to let the car do most of the work going back. So by letting the car do a lot of the work, it actually keeps me more tentative because I'm not worried about every little aspect of everything. I'm not worried about my speed so much. I'm not worried about keeping myself between the lines perfectly. I'm able to concentrate on other things like the cars around me, you know, just making sure everything's okay. Obviously, this is also very good if you have kids in the car and you're always trying to check your rear view mirrors to make sure your kids are doing fine in the back. Having autopilot is really nice for safety, and I really enjoy it. And I've noticed that going on long road trips, like for instance, when we drove this car out to Colorado, 1,800 miles, we spent about 2.5 days to do that trip. And, you know, some of the days were 12 hours of driving. But yet when I got to the end of that 12 hours, I was actually doing okay. I was feeling pretty good about myself. And there's a couple reasons for that. We stopped and got out of the car every couple of hours, 2 to 2.5 hours. We got to spend 20 to 30 minutes charging the car, which means I got 20 minutes of relaxing and being able to, you know, kind of breathe in and just take a moment and not feel like I had to get back in the car and rush back onto the road. We were able to kind of slow down and do our thing. And so after 12 hours of driving, I was still fine. I was not tired. And I've done 12 hours of driving in just like a regular car, and it tires you out very quickly when you don't have some of this extra safety to help you out during your drive. It's very nice to have the lane centering. It's very nice to have the dynamic cruise control. Like for instance, I'm keeping a nice distance from this Jeep in front of us because I can adjust my distance as much as I want for quite a few levels of distance. And so I'm keeping a safe distance from that car in front of me. It is keeping our speeds exactly the same as theirs by doing that. So even though I have my speed set to higher, it's only going to do as fast as the car in front of me, or if there is nobody in front of me, it will go at the maximum speed. And so I can just adjust my autopilot as much as I want. So for instance, if I want to drop this down 5 miles per hour, I could scroll down really quick on the wheel. I get 5 miles an hour slower. If I want to go up increments of 1, I could just click it up 1, maybe another 1, okay, maybe another 1. And then if I want to go up to the nearest 0 or 5, I just flip the wheel like that and it goes up to the nearest 0 or 5 mark. It's that type of stuff that really keeps me in the Tesla because of how convenient that is. Just the thought of it just makes a lot of sense, and I really enjoy that part of driving this car, even on long distances. All right, everybody, well, that's pretty much all I got from my side. I really appreciate you watching this. After 2 years of owning my Tesla Model 3, what is my opinion on it? I like it. I like the car. It's a solid car. Yeah, it has some minor quirks with it. You know, it does have some build quality issues with the interior still rattling and some weirdness when it comes to that stuff. But overall, I absolutely love the Tesla Model 3 performance, and I don't regret buying it whatsoever. I think the car is fantastic. I will probably end up buying another Tesla in the future because of how impressed I am with this particular car. And I really think that the cars are just going to get a little bit better, a little bit better, and a little bit better over time as Tesla starts to, you know, hone in all of their abilities, basically. And the software, once again, the software is so nice, so consistent, so easy to use that I really can't see the end of it. I really can't see them stopping making this better and better and better every single month. Like, it seems like every time they release an update, it's just something better and newer and cooler, and adding more safety features too, which is the best part, is that they can add more safety to these cars during your ownership. Not on top of the fact that these things are top of the line when it comes to crash tests. I mean, they're a great car for that as well. They're one of the safest cars on the road, period. And that goes a long way for a lot of people. A lot of people want to protect themselves, protect their passengers, make sure that everybody's safe during you know, an incident, unfortunately, that they do happen. And because of that, this really is one of the best cars on the road for occupant safety. All right, everybody, will you join me back here at the house after our driving impressions? So overall, I got to say, I love the Tesla Model 3 Performance. I bought this car 2 years ago. I don't regret it at all. I think it's a fantastic car. If you're looking for a very fast, a very cool sports car, but it's also pretty practical. 4 doors, 5-seater, nice big trunk. You got a lot of storage areas under the trunk, on the front there. If you're looking for a pretty practical car, but it's also very fun to drive, also very fast, the Model 3 Performance is definitely something to look at. As long as you can get over all the other things about Tesla and Elon and all that stuff, if you could get over all that stuff and just look at the car itself, what the car offers you, what you can get from the car, I think you will not be upset whatsoever about the decision. At least drive it. I'm sure you know somebody who has a Tesla if you're looking at one, and these are very fun cars to drive, regardless of if it's a performance or just a regular all-wheel drive or even just a rear-wheel drive. Very fun cars to drive, very practical, very useful, great efficiency range, and you know, once again, I love this car. We're not getting rid of it anytime soon. I think we're going to keep this one around for a while. We love it on road trips. We love its charging, up to 250 kilowatts maximum charging. And, you know, even though there are better charging cars on the market, you can't get away with the fact that you're charging at Tesla superchargers, which are very typically always up and running, usually not super busy. I mean, unless you're in like California. I think there's a lot of things to be said for Tesla and where it's come from and how much it's improved over the past 10 years, maybe call it 12 years if you want. And just seeing where they are now is just absolutely incredible. Building cars from ground up, building out the software, building out the charging infrastructure, building out all this stuff, and still keeping a reasonably priced vehicle at the same time. It's not a luxury item like it used to be. It wasn't, oh, a Tesla, you have to be making a lot of money to have a Tesla. Like, no, you can get a Tesla nowadays for well under $40,000 after tax credits. And why not? Like, really, like, as long as you could get past those little things, I don't think that you should overlook a Tesla, whether it be a Model 3 or a Model Y or whatever the case may be. Those are the more reasonably priced ones. I don't think you're going to be upset with that decision, especially if you're road tripping a lot, especially if you need to fill up while you're out on the road. This is probably one of the better choices out there on the road. And I'm not saying that the Mach-E is a bad car by any means. The Mach-E is a fantastic vehicle and it's very comfortable. We actually prefer to road trip that more than this because that's just a more comfortable vehicle. And actually, we joked about it on one of our last road trips with this one when we were driving out to Tennessee. We were saying, you know, it'd be great if we had a vehicle like the Mach-E, but it had all the software and everything of the Tesla. And, you know, basically I said, well, that's just the Model Y. and it's so true because the Model Y is also one of those vehicles that's just so perfect in its class, very good size, very comfortable vehicle. Obviously, you got the software, you got the crossover size or small SUV, whatever you want to consider it. Just overall, just a very nice vehicle as well. But the Model 3 being a little bit cheaper, if you prefer to have the sedan over the, you know, crossover or SUV look to them, if you prefer this, I would say you're not going to be upset with it because you still get plenty of room for passengers, plenty of room for cargo, and it's just a great vehicle. Anyway, I'm interested to hear what you have to say down in the comments. So if you have any comments about a Model 3, if you own one, or if you're interested in one, if you have any questions about this one, or if you have any questions about Tesla Model 3s in general, please hit the comments down below. I'd love to respond to those and give you my opinion on that. If I missed anything in this video, or if I forgot to talk about anything in particular, please let me know. I'll answer whatever I can down in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. I really, really do appreciate you watching this video all the way through. I knew it was kind of long, a little bit long-winded. I apologize for that. but typically my videos of my reviews are usually pretty long. Anyway, thanks again very much for watching today's episode, and we'll see you on the next review. And of course, welcome to the future, and welcome to Tech Motoring. And we'll see you on the next one.